Alright, this is our first lesson in Chapter 6. 6.1 is important, but to me, I think that it's more important that we figure out the most difficult parts of Chapter 6. So what we're going to do is start out by revisiting something that's simple and apply it to a higher level. Chapter 6.2 is about solving by substitution, but it's not our typical substitution. Substitution means that whenever you know two things have the same value, that you can replace them and legally put something else in its place. So for example, what we've seen before is a question like this where it said x is equal to negative 6. What that's telling me is everywhere that I see a x, I can put a negative 6 because those two have the same value. So what we will do is come over here and put a 4, and the way I've been trying to train you, some of you haven't really been working on that, is to use parentheses, negative 6 minus, and then this says that y has the same value as negative 2. So what we can do is put minus 3 once we see a y, open up parentheses, and it's just the y. Put a negative 2 in there with the squared on the outside. Again, that's where a lot of you mess up, is you put the squared on the inside, and that is a difference. I want to show you what most of you are still doing wrong, even though I've been trying my best to convince you to stop doing it. I don't think you care or even recognize it yet. But if you type 4 times negative 6 minus 3 times negative 2 squared, and again, this is what some of you choose to do, and you don't do it the way I'm showing you, you get the answer of negative 12. But if you type it in exactly the way you see it, like I've been trying to tell you to do, which is 4 parentheses negative 6 close minus 3 parentheses negative 2 close squared, you get the answer of negative 36. Now I want to also show you again what some of you do wrong, which is you put your minus 3, you open your parentheses, and you put your negative 2, but again, if you put that squared inside your parentheses, you do not get the right answer. The actual answer to this is negative 36, but again, you've got to remember when you type it in that what you type in makes a difference, and you have to make sure you care enough to do that. But that was the substitution that we learned way back in Chapter 1. The essential question just asks what makes this substitution different than what I already know about, and it's nothing. All that happens is the level of what you're going to be doing steps up a little bit, but as long as you don't allow yourself to get intimidated, and you're going to slowly work your way to the solution. Again, just like most of the things we learn, this is not a lesson on the full process of substitution. It's just teaching you to make sure you know how to substitute, and then once you substitute, you use the previous algebra that you've been using. There's one step that you are learning today, and that's it. It's not 20 steps that you're learning. It's just one step that you're learning to add into your algebra work. So let's just get to some examples and get you some practice. I use what I call the box and switch method, and what I mean by that is if I see a variable all by itself like this y, I'm going to take that y and say that y has the same value in this case as the full x plus 16, because it says y is equal to x plus 16. And so again, if y is equal to x plus 16, then what I'm going to do is put this in for the other y. A system of equations is an equation that it's an equation, I'm sorry, let me get my words right. It is a problem that has more than one equation in it. So in order to solve for y and x, you need two equations, and we need to find our way through it, because you know you can't solve just a y equals 3x or a y equals x plus 16. But again, what's happening is if y is equal to x plus 16 and there's a y up here, then what I can do is take this x plus 16 and substitute it for that y, which means that I will put x plus 16. Now I'm not going to use parentheses because there's nothing attached to that y, and then I'll rewrite this whole equation as it is, but I changed my y into x plus 16 because those two things have the same value. I hope you see that. If you don't, bring your computer up to me and let me help you out with that part. But again, if y is equal to x plus 16 and these two things have the same value, that means everywhere I see a y, I can replace it with x plus 16. From there, my algebra is easy. I subtract x from both sides. I get 16 equals 2x. I divide by 2. Again, the algebra part we know already. 8 is equal to x. 8 is equal to x. And now that we know x, we can go back, because now that we know every x is 8, we can go back to one of these things, rewrite our original equations, y equals 3x, turn our x into 8, and get the answer of y equals 24. That is solving by substitution. We need both answers. We found out that x is 8. We found out that y is 24. We will work on the formal way of doing this later on, because this is a 3-day lesson for you, Today is just an introduction on the easy level questions of substitution, giving you an opportunity to go ahead and get used to that. But that's substitution. Once you know that this is equal to, or that this is equal to y, and once you see a variable by itself, you can plug that variable in for something else. You can even do it. These two are just set up the opposite way, just to show you that even though I plugged x plus 16 in for y, it would have worked if I would have plugged in the 3x. And again, these questions are straight from your homework. In this case, again, y has the same value as 5x. So what I'm going to do is put 5x in for that y. So again, I'm going to take this 5x and put it over there. So I'll change this y into a 5x and then rewrite the rest of it equals x plus 52. I will then move my x towards the other side, get 4x equals 52, divide by 4, getting the answer of 13. And then once I get 13, again, I chose to use that one the first time. I'm going to show you. You could even do it this way up here. So I do y equals x plus 52, which is then 13. Again, there's nothing attached to that x, so I really don't need parentheses there. 13 plus 52, which is 65. Now let me show you real fast. I kind of overlooked it before, how you can check your answer. We know from doing this before that if I plug 8 in for 3, so 3 times 8 gives me 24, and again we know that y is 24. We can also put the 8 right here. 8 plus 16 is also 24, which means that it works. Same thing happens down here. If I put this 13 in for that, 13 plus 52 is 65, which is what we have here. Or we could do 5 parentheses 13 and still get the answer of 65, which is what tells me that I have the right answer. So if your answer is right, you should be able to plug in whatever your variable is, and they should get the same answer no matter what. So just be careful on that, and make sure that, especially if you care about your grade or your score on the quiz, that you actually check your work just real quick. It doesn't take long, just to make sure you've got it. So this represented the lowest level of substitution that you're going to practice. Here is the second level of substitution you're going to practice also today. In this situation, you don't have both options to choose from, but we do see one variable of y up here, and it's equal to the value of x plus 5. So what we're going to do is take this x plus 5 and put it in the other y. Now whenever you do it with the y in the middle of an equation, you do 3 steps. You write everything in front of the box, which is 8x plus. You then use parentheses, because there's stuff around this, to turn y into x plus 5 and close it. Then you write everything behind the box, which is 32. Now, on the computer assignment that I give you, you have to show this next step, even though some of you think it's not important. It's going to be important tomorrow. But you want to rewrite this without parentheses, which means 8x plus 5 equals 32. So we just pretty much took the parentheses out because that's just there. Now we're going to go ahead and combine like terms, which is 9x plus 5 equals 32. And we're going to solve. Again, this is not substitution. This is algebra here. The substitution was up here. The substitution was getting from 2 equations down to this, so we can solve it. Then we divide by 9, getting the answer of x equals 3. Again, once we get x equals 3, you have 2 options, but let's think about this. If I put a 3 right there, I've then got to subtract it and then divide by 8. I don't think that works. Or I have to put it, actually it'd be up there. X is 3. So I'd put it up there. But either way, I've got to multiply it by 8, subtract that to get my answer, or I can put in the one that says y equals. And in substitution, this is usually the easiest one to plug it in for. So I'm going to take this 3, plug it in for x, which gets me answer of y equals 8. Now watch carefully. If I take both of these answers and plug them in, it should work. So I'll do 8 parentheses x, which is 3, plus y, which is 8. Again, I don't need parentheses because y is just there. There's no multiplication. And look what I get. 32 here, 32 there. That's what tells me I got the right answer. So I know that x is 3. I know that y is 8. All right. And then the other one, again, just takes the 2 equations and switches them around. But again, what you were looking for in substitution is a variable that is all by itself. Once you find that variable, you recognize what it's equal to. That's our box and switch, even though these aren't boxes, they're rectangles. But I think it makes sense. It's easier to say as box and switch, so that's why I call it. But again, if that's what I'm going to put it in for, I put it in for this y here. Again, write everything in front of the box, 5x plus, turn my box of y into x plus 2 in parentheses, write everything behind the box, which is equals 44. Rewrite this without parentheses. Combine my like terms. Basic algebra. That's what it is. 6x then equals 42. Divide by 6. And x is 7. I then take this 7 and plug it into one of these. But again, use your common sense here. If I put the 7 up here, I've got to multiply it and do algebra, whereas here, you can honestly even do it in your head. 7 plus 2 is 9, but I do need to see your work, so please make sure you show me this part because it won't always be this easy. But that'll be 7 plus 2, again, just turning my x into a 7, which is 9. And again, to check it, check the equation you did not plug in for. So we'll do 5 parentheses x, which is 7, plus y, which is 9, equals 44. That's a 44. Therefore, you know you have it right. If you take a quiz on substitution and elimination, which is what you're going to learn next after you get finished with substitution, there is no reason to know, or there's no reason that you shouldn't have an idea what you got on the quiz. Because if you check your answers, you can see if you got the answer right. And as long as you showed your work, if you plug this into both of these equations and it works, you know 100% that that question is done correctly. So learn to check, because then if you start out by doing it now, then when you take the quiz, you know how to check quickly. The more you check your answers, the faster you get at checking your answers, which then makes it something that just comes naturally, and you'll walk out of that quiz knowing that you have 100%, or you actually know that you missed a couple because you couldn't get a couple to work out. Final thought on that, for my class, we're not taking a test on this chapter this semester. 11 chapters for us means that we can do 5 chapters, 5.5 chapters or so in 5.5. That's how I split my 11. And so the 1/2 for me is that we're going to spend the rest of this semester working on the hardest part of chapter 6, which is substitution and elimination. So we're going to spend a week or 3 days on substitution. We're going to spend 3 days on elimination. That's what these videos are going to be about. And then we're going to go from there. Now, again, make sure you work as hard as you can to understand today. Because if you don't understand it today, you're not going to make it through tomorrow. Today is easy. You notice there were no distributive properties, there were no negatives to deal with, and I set it up that way on purpose. Now tomorrow you're going to get some distributives, you're going to get some negatives, and things will go crazy. Also, make sure you read the question that I have on the Ed Puzzle, because it has to do with some of you who have a grade issue in this class and some of the options that you have. So just make sure you take that question seriously, because now that we are down to 2 more weeks before your grade deadline is set, you need to make sure you're making right choices and getting what you need to get done. Other than that, let's get to the Math XL and see what happens. Good luck.